We are back with Limelight with Charlie Kraus. He's going to talk to us about making your video workflow work for you. I tripped over that. And one of you will be leaving with this handsome Hero 5 action cam. Fantastic prize again. Take it away.
Okay, be honest, everybody. How many here hoping to win a GoPro? Excellent. It works every time. It worked at Streaming Media West. All right, we're going to have some fun, I hope. It's a little bit less technical than the previous one. So we're going to talk about video workflows and so forth. We just, by coincidence, made some announcement this morning that I'm going to bring up at the very end of this thing. We've been struggling, the whole industry has been struggling with problems of emerging geographies and network connectivity and the quality of links. And we've been trying to tackle this problem. I'm not going to say we solved it, but we've made some good headway in terms of being able to deliver really high quality, cut down rebuffer rates in really horrible network conditions. I'm going to talk about kind of what we announced at the end, so I make you stick around for that. So first thing I want to do is quick agenda. Well, just a little bit of market data. A lot of it gets repetitive. I think you know users' expectations and so forth, but we'll just cover latest. Twice a year we do a survey, 9 countrywide survey of thousands of people out about how they watch video and what they get frustrated with and so forth, and we compile these reports and put them out. And I always like to show the latest because I watch them over time, and the numbers all kind of move a little bit in expected directions. And we'll go into really high level view of some of the workflows, different options you have for delivering content. And then talk about securities just because of cyber attacks, how you're going to secure this stuff. So expectations. Naturally, no matter how complex things are, users' expectations are always up to the right. We want it quality all the time, better and better, any format, anywhere, all the time, right? It's just like a broken record. So I pulled out just a few graphs. Is what are they watching? Unsurprising movies, TV shows, and so forth. That's the usual stuff. What do they get frustrated about? Well, but rebuffering. It doesn't take too many times, and generally, second or third time of the little donut spinning, and they're out. So that's a bad thing. So if you're trying to monetize content, you're trying to keep people engaged, anything you can do to avoid that third buffer is really important. And I keep an eye on this stuff because for Limelight, I manage marketing of all our video services. And we started doing the Thursday night NFL football delivery. I watched that first night, just watching, waiting, and seeing what happened. And I never, ever saw a rebuffer. There was rebuffers in the commercials leading up to the game. When the game started, there were none. So somebody adjusted something in the knock, probably put a little more delay in. We also look at the devices. So obviously mobile, so if you add up smartphone plus tablet and so forth, that's the biggest bar on this whole thing. Especially Asia and parts outside the US, it's even more mobile than here. For TVs, you can turn a dumb TV into a smart TV with a Roku or a Fire Stick or any of these. What I'm surprised at this time, if you look at the market share of Apple TV, Roku, and all those, it's all about the same. They're all like 10, 11% for those devices, which means if you're delivering to these things, you have to get certified or on their programs for all of them, because if you leave one out, you just lost 10% of your market based on that. So it's something to think about. So let's talk about some workflows here for delivering to all these different devices, and it's only getting worse in terms of the numbers of them out there. I'm going to talk about live streaming because in a way that's a little bit easier to deal with in terms of broad distribution, because it's sort of like broadcasting but on the internet. It's everything at once. So I don't pitch products when I talk. I'll save the commercial sponsor for the end. So I'm just going to talk CDNs in general, because what generally all of them do a pretty good job at is having you a way to ingest in one format and to create everything else from that. So the recommendation, best practice, the higher the bit rate you can send it in, the better. If you're doing 4K, give us 4K, because then we can break it down into SD, HD, and all the others much easier. So, and if you want to give us a lot of different bit rates, we can do that. So they can transcode, they can transmux, you can give us one bit rate, many, doesn't matter to us. We have a huge number of customers that especially when you get into the top 10 OTT services, and you know who they are, they say, look, we're really good at this transcode. We know how to do this stuff. What we don't know how to do right is deliver everywhere. So don't sell us this stuff. Just take our bits in, take our files in, and just make sure you do a good global distribution of stuff, and that's what they use us for. And that's huge. But once you get below that top 10 on the smaller ones, then everybody wants the full plate of services. So I keep putting HLS, HDS, and all these on there. In reality today, there's really only two that matter most of the time. So if it's a mobile device, if it's a tablet, if it's iOS, it's Android, it's going to be HDS. If it's these streaming devices that hooked up to your TV or an OTT service on television, it's Dash. And I don't think we're going to get to one. I know Dash's intention was let's have one standard, but every time Dash makes some advancement, Apple does the same thing with HLS. So I just don't see that changing anytime soon. But HDS and MSS are sort of slowly deprecating themselves. So this works really well. You know, if you want to hand it off and not worry about it, these services will work great for you. But something interesting's happened. Low latency live streaming. You probably have noticed that almost all the browsers now have deprecated support of Flash, RTMP, for lots of reasons. There's religious wars about it, but there's security issues with it and so forth. And if you go and Google this, you'll find all kinds of debates about, my God, why are you getting rid of Flash? We need that. We love it. You know, keep supporting it. But the fact is that it's almost gone in terms of support in browsers today. But there's a couple of use cases where it's critical, and most of it we don't see as much in the US because it's all around online gambling and gaming. So if you go to APAC or you go to EMEA or you go to the gambling thing in either Macau or Malta, online low latency video is critical. And if somebody's sitting there and somebody is a minute ahead or 10 seconds ahead or something you're seeing that you're betting on, like a horse race, that's a problem. So low latency is a big deal. But it's hard to do that with chunk video because you have to break it up into chunks and it takes processing time to do it. But there's hope. So right now, what you'll typically see is some CDNs have stopped delivering RTMP. Us and a few others have not, simply because we have a bunch of customers in the gaming industry that still have ways of delivering it to customers, and they just want a CDN to do it. So we're going to keep delivering it as long as people want it until they have a transition. The next thing you're seeing is the ability to take the chunk sizes down. So you can take them down to 2 seconds, and it helps a lot. And we have a couple of successful gaming companies in Asia that are using 2-second Dash. And for them, given what it would typically look like, where it's 30 seconds or more, they're pretty happy with the 2-second time. You have to add another second or so of getting onto the CDN and off, so it ends up being like 3 or 4. But they're still really happy with that. But what's coming later this year is, if you've heard of something called WebRTC, this is a way to really nail down low latency chunk streaming. And there are 5 or 6 companies out there that have some sort of WebRTC-like solution to this. We've tested a bunch of them work really, really well. And you're going to see before the end of this year really standardized WebRTC-based low latency chunk streaming for HLS and Dash outputs. But based on some production trials, I'm encouraged. I think Q4, stay tuned. Video on demand, a little bit tougher because you have this storage problem. Live is great, you just pour it through and send it out and maybe record it. But video on demand customers, so a lot of these guys have thousands of these movie titles. Sometimes they don't want to be their own origin because they're far away from users. So we have something called CDN Origin where you can store it in the CDN, but of course we're going to charge you to do that. So they want to sort of minimize keeping too many files in there. So what typically happens is they'll send us one file format, and that's what we store. And then as users' requests come in for the different other formats and bit rates, we will transcode transmux on the fly. So you only have to store it in one format, not in 10. And we'll just on the fly convert it for you as it flows out. And again, not just us, very common CDN functionality to do that. We're going to talk about some other intelligent ingest in a minute that it makes this even easier. But this is a big deal with all these on-demand video OTT services out there now. Anybody have a guess as how many OTT services there are in the world? And I've tried to figure this out, and I think I've got a number. People usually guess in the hundreds, and they're wrong, or 1,000, and they're wrong. I looked at all the channel guides of Roku, Apple, and so forth, and deduped it and stuff, and I'm at 3,500 and counting OTT services, unique OTT services in the world. So I have a prediction that probably in 5 years, all of them are not going to figure out a way to monetize and stay alive. Video platform. So another thing you can do is really do a complete package and hand it off. So there's about 100 of these. If you Google video platforms, you'll probably find 100 of these out there. You could probably name the top 5. We offer one as well, but what's pretty common about these, it's kind of like an all-in-one package. You'll have content management, so you can manage all your videos. You can do closed captioning. You can do ad insert, tons of analytics on them, so you know engagement, how long people are watching, what they're watching, how long they're on, and so forth. Lots of options for how you send it in, all the transcoding. It's all part of one package out there. Things about starting. You want to give users the best possible startup, so you have this choice of how you want to start. High bit rates or low bit rates. So if you know where you're delivering, and you know, like if you're in Korea where they have awesome bandwidth pretty much everywhere, you don't want to start at a low bit rate and give them a bad, crappy screen and have it scale up. You want to start high. But if you're delivering a lot in the third world, you don't want to start really high and then having it not work and lowing down. So you pick where in the middle. You can be high, low, middle, so that you pick a bit rate so that the user has a high percentage shot at getting a really good quality right off the bat with a little negotiation after that. So just sort of things to think of in terms of like a shopping list for how you might look at things that video platforms can do. So CDN-based origin storage, this is just simply, this isn't enterprise storage, this isn't tiered storage, this is just really fast solid state storage that you put in around POPs that CDNs use to put content close to users so you can get it to them really, really fast. It's really, they're always tightly integrated with the CDN. So, and we do it with backup. Everything we put it in 3 different places. It's just part of the service. We don't charge you for that, but we always store it in 3 locations. So if something happens to one, there's always another location to get something right away. We try to avoid ever going back to customer's origin. To ingest, so something called intelligent ingest. If you have 5,000 titles, they're all not going to be the same in terms of popularity out there. So you can do something called load on demand. You have all the titles in there. Somebody requests a movie. You say, so when you deliver the movie, we put it into storage. Somebody requested it. As people request content, we put it into storage. And we have these algorithms you can tune to say, all right, as long as people keep requesting it, I'll leave it there. If a period of time goes by and nobody ever requests it, maybe that was just a one-hit wonder, and maybe I shouldn't be paying to store it, and we'll pull it down. And that way you let market demand determine what content specifically gets into that more expensive, fast CDN storage. Or you can give us a manifest, so-called manifest upload. If you think you know what's popular, you give us a manifest, and we'll go get it for you. We'll go to the origin, we'll pull it out, we'll stick it in there, and you can combine these things together. So it's a good way to have a hands-off way of keeping the really popular content up and positioned really well. Not only do you have to put content in, sometimes you have to take it out. Mistakes, sometimes the wrong video gets up there, or something's wrong. And when depending on what's wrong, sometimes you can't get it down fast enough. And I'll let you use your imagination on what that could be. But the way this works is all the content that's stored is understood. You know where every piece of file and where it is and what caches it's in. And when you want to purge something, within seconds, it's pretty much instantly inaccessible to anybody that's trying to pull it. That doesn't mean it's erased from the cache yet. It's just made inaccessible, which is what you want. You don't want anybody to be able to get it. And then once it's inaccessible, now in the background, you can start removing the content from all the caches. But so a lot of customers have been very happy about this, because when, like a news item or just something that shouldn't have gotten out there, you just can't get it down fast enough. And you get the usual, all the verifications and so forth, that you get a warm feeling that invalidation reports, it's all out, and you can see who did it, who ordered it out, so you get all this data and analytics about it, so you know who's taking content down. It's pretty useful most of the time. If you think about 4K, just every time I was at NAB and everything's 4K cameras, 4K everywhere, there's a small problem, is that, and it's worse outside the US, look at the bandwidth you need to do just straight up 4K. all right, 20 to 25 meg. High dynamic range, a little bit higher. I saw 4K virtual reality, so you have multiple views. So how many views do you want to present? Multiply that by that number, right? So if 80% of US households have less than 8 meg, guess what? So if you're wondering why maybe 4K is a little bit, it took off like crazy for a little bit, but now it's kind of stalled out, not a lot of content. I know there's services that, like Curiosity Stream, you can get standard definition, high definition, and 4K, and you pay for each. But there's just not a lot of demand yet for 4K for the simple reason is hardly anybody has the bandwidth to get it. But everybody buys 4K TVs. Why is that? Because that's all we sell. The manufacturers have found out that it's so cheap to make the displays, that's all they're making. So I was on a panel at NEB with a guy from Sony that was talking about the huge demand from customers for 4K. I said, no, there isn't. Try to buy something else if you go to Best Buy. That's all you can get. That's not demand. That's industry push. But the content's lagging. I know every sporting event at the Masters, they're going to take one golf hole and they're going to broadcast it in 4K. That keeps happening. But it's going to take time to, for the infrastructure to catch up. We expand our internet infrastructure every year, or everybody does. But it's not going to suddenly, solve this problem in just a year. It's going to be a slow thing. But on the other hand, 4K TVs have software in there that kind of makes the picture look really good. So even some people think they're watching 4K and they're not, just because the software does a pretty good job of cleaning things up. QoS for video. I know I'm bouncing around here, but I'm trying to cover a lot of stuff at a high level. What we do is we monitor our own network. We have monitoring points for bandwidth, latency, and so forth. A lot of our customers let us get the player beaconing data. So all that beaconing data they allow us to see. And that's the real place to measure video quality, right at the player itself. There's companies, we have a partnership with a company called Nice People at Work, which is an odd name of this wonderful Spanish company who actually are nice people at work. And they make tools that look at these video beaconing things and really give you good metrics on video quality and using it to switch CDNs. Everybody uses multi-CDNs if you're delivering video. And these tools will let you see who's doing the best job and aiming more traffic at that. So that's good stuff. Performance improvements, what I said that we announced today. We've done testing now in emerging regions for the last year of some tricks we've pulled in we write our own TCP stack for our CDN, and we have a lot of control over it. So we've gone to the worst places in the world to deliver contents where there's still actually 2G links that aren't even that good. And depending on, your mileage will vary, but we've gotten as much as like 41% reduction in rebuffering, some places 33%, some places 25%. Sort of the worse the network conditions, the better improvement you can make on these things. Your mileage will vary. But this is good. If you can cut 30% off of rebuffering, that's a big win. And here the word from your sponsor is coming up for a minute about this, based on our confidence of this. Multi-CDN, everybody does it, right? So you have to. Something could happen. In a live event, you can't have traffic stop. So everybody uses 2 or 3 or 4. We have people using 5 CDNs. And tools like Sodexis and Nice People at Work will act as traffic balancers and throw the traffic to whatever CDN's performing the best. You got to secure, right? There's enough. You never have to market security. The news is full of this stuff. Between content security, like making SSL, make sure it's encrypted, DRM, make sure people don't steal it and share it, make sure the site's up and running with DDoS protection and WAF, et cetera. Most CDNs have a whole suite of cloud services to do this stuff. It's a good idea to take advantage of it. I'm going to just skip through a couple of case studies because I'm getting the timeout signal. Curiosity Stream, one of these people that use our whole platform, all the services. It's scientific-based OTT content around the world, and all these stuff are up on our website. We have about 100 good case studies on this stuff. Channel 4 in the UK, lots of live video and video on demand events, and they use us to deliver content all over Europe, and happy people. So we have something going on now called the Video Performance Guarantee, and a couple of people, I think Dan Rayburn said, boy, you guys have guts to do this. This is like really aggressive stuff. So what we announced this morning is try us. Try us for 90 days. Try us for free. if you don't get at least a 10% reduction in rebuffer rates, we won't charge you for it. Delivery. You have nothing to lose. All right? Show us your invoices. We'll price match. You know, if you're happy, then okay, now we'll start charging you. And you show us your bills for your stuff. We'll match it for you. And I never said we don't want all your traffic. Just give us 5%. And I know what happens over time. Our 5% will start growing because we're going to do a really good job, and the CDN balancers will start giving us more traffic, and then in a year we're going to have half the traffic or 60% of the traffic. So no commits, no startup fees, nothing. And to learn more, my only shameless promotion, we have a booth, 321. And I think that is it. Thank you. And I
Give
think
it up for Charlie.
perfect timing.